The line graph shows visits to and from the UK from 1979 to 1999. The bar chart shows the most popular countries visited by UK residents in 1999. The line graph delineates the number of visits into and out of the UK in millions over a 20-year period from 1979 to 1999, while the bar graph illustrates the most famous countries visited by UK citizens in 1999. Overall, it can be seen that there are more visits abroad over the period of time in question, with France being the most popular destination country in 1999. The number of UK residents travelling abroad maintained a steady rise, starting at about 11 million visits in 1979. Meanwhile, the visits to the UK by foreigners was not far behind, with an approximate value of 10 million. Over the next 10 years, the number of visits abroad surged to just above 30 million, while the visits by overseas residents slightly increased to 20 million. The visits to and from the overseas maintained this upward trend for another decade, culminating at around 50 million and just over 25 million respectively. The most popular country visited by the UK nationals was France, with approximately 11 million visitors, followed by Spain, which garnered around 9 million visitors. The USA, Greece and Turkey were next in line with about 4, 3 and 2 million visitors respectively. The pie charts show the electricity generated in Germany and France from all sources and renewables in the year 2009. The 4 pie charts compare the electricity generated between Germany and France during 2009, and it is measured in billions kilowatt-hour. Overall, it can be seen that conventional thermal was the main source of electricity in Germany, whereas nuclear was the main source in France.
The bulk of electricity in Germany, whose total output was 560 billion kilowatt-hours, came from conventional thermal, at 59.6%. In France, the total output was lower, at 510 billion kilowatt-hours, and in contrast to Germany, conventional thermal accounted for just 10.3%, with most electricity coming from nuclear power, 76%. In Germany, the proportion of nuclear power generated electricity was only 1/5 of the total. Moving on to renewables, this accounted for quite similar proportions for both countries, ranging from around 14% to 17% of the total electricity generated. In detail, in Germany, most of the renewables consisted of wind and biomass, totaling around 75%, which was far higher than for hydroelectric, 17.7%, and solar, 6.1%. The situation was very different in France, where hydroelectric made up 80.5% of renewable electricity, with biomass, wind and solar making up the remaining 20%. Neither country used geothermal energy. The table illustrates the proportion of monthly household income 5 European countries spend on food and drink, housing, clothing and entertainment. The table shows the amount of household income that 5 countries in Europe spend per month on 4 items. Overall, it is evident that all 5 countries spend the majority of their income on food and drink and housing, but much less on clothing and entertainment. Housing is the largest expenditure item for France, Germany and the UK, with all of them spending around 1/3 of their income on this, at 30%, 33% and 37%, respectively. In contrast, they spend around 1/4 on food and drink. However, this pattern is reversed for Turkey and Spain, who spend around 1/5 of their income on housing, but approximately 1/3 on food and drink. All 5 countries spend much less on the remaining 2 items. For clothing, France and Spain spend the least, at less than 10%, while the other 3 countries spend around the same amount, ranging between 11% and 15%. At 19%, Germany spends the most on entertainment, whereas UK and Turkey spend approximately half this amount, with France and Spain spending between those other 3 nations. The illustrations show how chocolate is produced. The diagram explains the process for the making of chocolate. There are a total of 10 stages in the process, beginning with the growing of the pods on the cacao trees and culminating in the production of the chocolate. To begin, the cocoa comes from the cacao tree, which is grown in the South American and African continents and the country of Indonesia. Once the pods are ripe and red, they are harvested and the white cocoa beans are removed. Following a period of fermentation, they are then laid out on a large tray so they can dry under the sun. Next, they are placed into large sacks and delivered to the factory. They are then roasted at a temperature of 350 degrees, after which the beans are crushed and separated from their outer shell. In the final stage, this inner part that is left is pressed and the chocolate is produced.